The story opens at the iron gates of the Blackwood County Animal Shelter, a place where hope often goes to wither in the shadows of cold concrete. In the very last kennel, surrounded by yellow caution tape and warning signs that read "Do not approach," sits a massive Doberman named Baron. He weighs 110 pounds of pure, lean muscle and defensive fury. The hallway is filled with the deafening roar of barking dogs, but Baron is different. He does not bark. He simply stares with eyes that have seen too much betrayal, his body a coiled spring of tension. The shelter manager, a weary man who has seen it all, tells a visitor that everyone has advised against rescuing this beast. They say he is too far gone, a monster bred for violence who has forgotten how to be a friend. The opening scene ends with a haunting question. Why does a woman named Evelyn, who has spent her life avoiding the world, stop in front of the very cage that everyone else is running away from? Evelyn is a woman defined by her own quietness and the invisible walls she has built around her heart. A former emergency room nurse who walked away from the chaos of saving others after a personal tragedy, she now lives in a house that feels more like a museum of what used to be. She is 45 years old, but her eyes carry the weight of a century. Evelyn struggles with a deep sense of isolation, finding it difficult to connect with people who do not understand the heavy silence of grief. She is the kind of person who fades into the background, preferring the company of books and the stillness of the early morning. People in her town see her as cold or distant, but in reality, she is simply protecting a spirit that feels too fragile for the modern world. The reason viewers will empathize with her is the universal feeling of being discarded or misunderstood. Like Baron, Evelyn has been told by the world that she is no longer useful, that her scars are too deep to be healed. She sees in the Doberman a mirror of her own internal struggle, a creature that has been abandoned by those who were supposed to protect him. The moment that changes everything occurs when Evelyn reaches out her hand, not to pet the dog, but to simply exist in his space. While the shelter staff screams for her to get back, Baron does something he has never done for anyone else. He stops growling. He lowers his massive head and allows a single, shaky breath to escape his lungs. It is a moment of pure, unexpected recognition between two broken beings. Despite the intense warnings that she is making a life-threatening mistake, Evelyn signs the adoption papers. She is told that she has 48 hours to see an improvement, or the shelter will be forced to take him back for safety reasons. This creates a ticking clock, a high-stakes environment where the life of this 110-pound animal hangs in the balance. The staff watches in disbelief as she leads the giant Doberman to her small car. He doesn't lunge. He doesn't snarl. He walks with a heavy, deliberate pace, as if he is carrying the weight of the entire world on his graying muzzle. Evelyn knows that if she fails, he will never have another chance. As Baron settles into his first night at Evelyn's home, the K-Chi-B-N reveals the tragic circumstances that turned a loyal protector into a perceived monster. Through a series of poignant flashbacks, or through the discovery of old records, we learn that Baron was once a highly trained service animal for a veteran who suffered from severe night terrors. He wasn't aggressive by nature. He was trained to be hypervigilant. When his owner passed away, Baron was left alone in a house for weeks, guarding a body that could no longer speak to him. He wasn't being mean, he was being loyal to a ghost. This explanation adds a profound layer of emotional depth to the story. He isn't a dangerous dog. He is a grieving partner who has forgotten how to stop working. He is suffering from a broken heart that has manifested as defensive aggression. This revelation mirrors Evelyn's own history of loss, showing that both of them are trapped in a cycle of protection and pain. They are both still standing guard over things that are already gone, unable to move forward into the light. The first 24 hours are a test of sheer will and patience. Baron refuses to eat, sitting in the corner of the kitchen like a statue of sorrow. Evelyn does not force him. Instead, she sits on the floor across from him, reading out loud from a book, her voice a steady, calming presence in the room. She ignores the advice of the trainers who told her to use dominance. Instead, she uses the power of soft words and consistent space. She offers him a piece of high-quality food from her hand, waiting for over an hour without moving. Finally, just as the sun begins to set on the first day, Baron inches forward and takes the food with a gentleness that brings Evelyn to tears. The healing process is slow and non-linear. There are moments of fear where a loud noise sends Baron into a defensive crouch, but Evelyn remains a pillar of calm. She shows him that the world is no longer a battlefield. By the 36-hour mark, a miraculous change begins to take hold. Baron, the dog who was supposed to be a monster, rests his heavy head on Evelyn's knee for the first time. The silence in the house, once heavy and oppressive, begins to feel peaceful. They are learning a new language together, one that doesn't require words but relies entirely on trust and the shared experience of being saved. This section emphasizes that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but about finding the courage to be vulnerable again in the presence of another. The 48-hour deadline arrives, and the shelter manager visits Evelyn's home to conduct a safety check. At that exact moment, a sudden and violent summer storm breaks out. The thunder is loud and terrifying, a trigger for Baron's past trauma. The manager is convinced the dog will snap. Baron begins to pace, his eyes wide with the old fear, his muscles tensing as if he is ready to fight the sky itself. But instead of lashing out, Baron turns to Evelyn. He sees her own hands shaking from the noise, and his instinct to protect overrides his instinct to fear. He does not growl at the stranger. Instead, he moves to stand between Evelyn and the door, his body a shield of pure devotion. He gently nudges her hand, asking her to be okay. It is a breathtaking reversal of roles. The dog who was rescued is now the one doing the rescuing. The manager stands in the doorway, frozen, as he realizes he isn't looking at a dangerous animal, but at a soul that has finally found its purpose again. The climax reaches its peak when the storm passes, and Baron sits calmly at Evelyn's side, his tail wagging once, slowly, for the first time in years. The story concludes with a beautiful sense of restoration. The shelter manager leaves, tearing up the return paperwork and shaking Evelyn's hand in silence. The house that was once a museum of grief is now filled with the sound of paws on the wooden floor and the soft breathing of a giant dog. We see a montage of their new life together. Long walks in the park where Baron gently greets other dogs, and Evelyn finally speaking to her neighbors again, her voice clear and no longer afraid. The connection between them has saved both their lives. The final image is of the two of them sitting on the porch at sunset. Baron is no longer a 110-pound threat. He is a companion, his head resting in Evelyn's lap. She looks at him and realizes that the 48 hours didn't just prove the world wrong about him. It proved the world wrong about her. They have both been redeemed by the simple, radical act of refusing to give up on each other.